Okay, take two. Technical difficulties already. Lily and I are both dealing with a big thunderstorm in our area right now. So I'm hoping that we can get her on here and we can still do brewing success this morning. We want to talk about fundraising, so it's going to be a big one. So fingers crossed it works this time. Come on, Instagram.
There we go.
Okay, awesome. We did it.
Yes.
Good, good.
We are, despite being in different places, we both get the same band of weather. So that's fantastic. Yeah, exactly. I have 4 bars on my cell phone, on my Verizon, so I'm feeling really good and hoping that we can keep it there. But I can hear you loud and clear, Bree. It's great to see you.
Great to see you too. I can hear you loud and clear too, so we'll just keep our fingers crossed the whole time.
Well, my mom has said for many, many years, since I was born, that my voice carries. So if you can't hear me on Instagram, you can probably hear me literally through your windows, even though
like when we were chatting yesterday and I heard your rooster wanting to chime in.
My family has voices that carry, you know.
I love it. I love it. Well, today's a juicy one and we have a ton to cover. So I want to jump right in, but I'll set it up and then let you get started. Today we're talking all about Fundraising 101, where to start, where to scale. If you're brand new or newish and you have questions, Lily's going to answer them all. She might also raise a few. So feel free to jump in the chat, ask questions, but also feel free to chat with us after, send messages if things pop up tomorrow. This is simmering and you don't know what to do. We're here for you guys. All right, Lily, take it away.
Always here for you. Yeah, feel free to send us an Instagram message, email, visit our websites, whatever you need. We're here for you. No pressure that Lily's going to answer all of your questions. If I can do
I
it.
have faith in you. I have faith in you.
My coach, my hype man. So I've got my industrial coffee once again. Yes, I am my best life. Shout out. Last time I shouted out the cup, which is a BrewMate, which I love. Another unpaid advertisement for Rise Up Coffee, which is an exquisite coffee company located on the eastern shore of Maryland.
Nice.
They started, oh my gosh, I think they've been open for 20 years, maybe 25. Started in St. Michael's, Maryland, and have since expanded. They've got, I want to say, a dozen locations. The world's best coffee, small business owned, Rise Up. Now that that is out of the way, let's talk about fundraising. So the topic of today is, so you're a brand new or new-ish nonprofit. But Bree, as you and I were talking about yesterday, preparing for this call, I think a lot of this really applies to any organization, no matter where you are in your organization's trajectory, no matter where you are in your personal engagement with your organization. I think there's something to be gleaned and definitely some benefit. Might be more, might be less based on this conversation. But we're going to talk about something really important, which is creating diverse revenue streams and engaging with your donors in meaningful ways across the spectrum. So there's a lot to cover, a short period of time. As Bree mentioned, we might run out of time, but always feel free to reach out to us. We're here to help. This is what we literally do for a living. And I am actually approaching on May 11th, my 1-year anniversary of Philanthropic. Yes, thank you so much. It's been such a wild ride and just such a gift to be able to work with so many deserving organizations. And I wanted to talk a little bit about what are the sort of the themes that I've captured and what are the emergent themes that have come out of this tied to our conversation today. And we're going to talk about creating multiple fundraising revenue streams, and we're going to chat about what each of those are and broadly how they're defined. But before we get into that, I wanted to talk about some of that foundational work that a lot of organizations just don't have yet, especially the startup nonprofits. One of the first things is a budget, an operating budget, right? Bree, this is something that you and I talked about last time. An organization, at the end of the day, is a business. Remember that IRS conversation that I got all fired up about? A non-stock corporation, which is a nonprofit, is still a business. So in order to run a business effectively, you need a budget, right? You need an operating budget. You need programmatic budgets. If you are an organization that offers 3 or 4 programs, what do each of those look like? Those are important not only for internal mechanisms, but also these are things that your funders and your prospective funders are going to be asking for. So that's why I wanted to bring it up, because if you're really excited to apply for grants and you're really excited to reach out to some major donors, and I think that's fantastic, just know that these are going to be some things that they're asking you for, because they want to make sure that their investment is going to be utilized in a way that is going to provide success long-term to a business and organization. In that same vein with budgets, financials. So I don't know if you've heard about what an IRS Form 990 is. We can talk about that another time. But if you're interested in seeing the health of an organization that you donate to, check it out. Google their name plus the number 990, and you'll see what I'm talking about. A 990 is essentially a set of financial records that all nonprofit organizations are required to file with the IRS. Different operating budget sizes are required to do a different in-depth level. So you can have a 990 that's very, very small if you have a really small organization. But if you have, let's say, a Habitat for Humanity or a March of Dimes or a St. Jude's or a huge organization like that, you'll see that their 990 forms are really, really comprehensive. So bringing it back to what might you need before you can go out and be successful, financials, whether they're audited or unaudited. If you're a brand new nonprofit, that's okay. It takes a little bit of time. There's about an 18-month lag actually with filing with the IRS, which shouldn't surprise any of us that there's an 18-month lag with the IRS. It applies to nonprofits also. So in the interim, don't let that stop you from applying for funding or having these documents together. Just think about using those financials that you put together in place of, or I'm sorry, your budget in place of what those financials might be. I'm working with a couple of clients who are just starting. This is their first year. So of course you're not going to have a look back of last year. There was no last year. That's fine. Just use your operating budget that you came up with to make sure that you're keeping track with your success. Very basic thing that sometimes gets people caught up. A lot of folks want to see who your board of directors are, what their addresses are, what their names are. This is really low-hanging fruit. This is something that before you bring on a consultant or before you embark upon your fundraising journey, just have that down in a Word document. Maybe have when their terms are up or when their terms begin, if you need to do that. If not, names and addresses will be just fine. Sometimes they ask for occupations. But again, and this is kind of a theme that you and I have talked about and will continue to push, having that repository of information is just so important to make sure that you're being efficient and that you're creating consistent outputs. So whoever you're talking to, they're getting the same information. So board of directors is another thing that I've noticed that's kind of missing, but really easy to do. And then templates. I'm going to leave this to you to talk about in a little bit, Bree. Ask letters, solicitation templates, thank you letter templates. Do you need to have all of these things before you get going? No, but it's a good idea to start, because once you start, you'll notice a snowball effect of being able to create materials that you can readily access, and it's going to make your fundraising efforts a whole lot more efficient. So those are kind of the themes that I've noticed working with my clients. You know, before we even get started, these are some of the things that we need to do. So might be something that you need to do.
Absolutely. And I love that you brought up and reinforced the idea of the repository and just how much information you can put into your record keeping. So anyone you talk to, any stories you have, any records and financials, etc., figuring out an efficient storage system is so critical. It sounds like from messaging to fundraising to really every asset in every area of the nonprofit.
Yep, and I got to tell you, I have a I use Dropbox for everything for myself.
There you go. Yeah.
It works really well. What I do is I have a personal Dropbox for myself because I have a business. I keep a lot of my templates in there, contracts, budgets, invoices, things like that. But what I also do for each of my clients is we have a shared Dropbox.
Okay.
And there are different subfolders so that we can have a shared dialogue. And also that when my time with that client ends, that's their information to keep. So that is their Dropbox. From a fundraising management perspective, a lot of people have various databases, but many small nonprofits that are just starting don't have the resources or really don't have the need yet to create a big database of Salesforce or Razor's Edge. There's lots of different ones out there. You know what I found the best one is?
What?
Google Doc. A Google Doc. It works.
Simple.
It works great. And again, you have a shared sheet that you're using, keeping everything in one place, keeping track of who your donors are, the grants that you've applied for, what those deadlines are, how much you're asking for. And the best thing about those resources are that you can update them collaboratively in real time. So whatever you decide, whatever that mechanism is for storage, just make sure that you have one, because I promise you, and Bree promises you as well, it will benefit you in the short term and in the long term.
Oh, for sure. And then Lily, I also just want to touch on and emphasize the other point you brought up about how a nonprofit is so similar to a business. And I feel like a lot of the brand new nonprofit executive directors that I talk to are like, oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to start. But a lot of them have done other careers or started other businesses. They have that experience already. And I think there's just this division in a lot of people's minds about entrepreneurship, right? And like the corporate world versus the nonprofit world. And I just want everyone to take a collective deep breath, that there's a lot that overlaps. If you've run a successful business, if you've climbed the corporate ladder, if you've exceeded expectations in a career, chances are there's a lot of like tips and tricks and skills that you can bring into starting your own nonprofit. Those mindset shifts that you've gone through will serve you well in the nonprofit space too. And so I just want to emphasize that, because that seems to be like a big concern with a lot of people that I talk to.
Yes, 100%. Thank you for pointing that out. And again, I'm just going to reiterate, a nonprofit organization, it's just a tax designation. If you strip all of that away, yes, is it a great opportunity to do fantastic work? Of course. Is it a great opportunity to connect donors with things that they care about? I think we talked about black dogs last time. Is it also a business that requires the knowledge to have revenues and expenses and programs and measuring success? Yes, all of those things as well. So thank you for pointing that out. If you have this experience, or even if you don't, try to think about it. Try to orient your brain to know that this is not a mom and pop operation just because it's and there's that perception in a lot of groups, and even internally. Oh, we're just a small nonprofit. No, you're a small business that happens to have a nonprofit tax designation. So I was just chatting with my wife about this morning. She runs a therapeutic riding nonprofit in Boyd's, Maryland. And she is the executive director and spends an inordinate amount of time on the operations side of things. So it's not just about going out there and raising money and talking to people and all that stuff. That's one small component of her job, but the vast majority of her job is invoicing, budget, audit, programming, making sure that revenues are up to speed. All of these things that you wouldn't think go into a nonprofit are in fact very important to a nonprofit. So.
Absolutely. And speaking of all the financials and the business side of things, want to get into ways to give? Let's break it down.
I have been waiting for this moment my entire life. I don't, but I'm here for this. So let's talk about the different types of giving to an organization. And I want to be mindful of our time. So I'm not going to belabor the point on a lot of these things. What I'm trying to emphasize is there are so many ways for people to engage with your organization in terms of financial support. We're not even going to cover volunteering or newsletters or keeping up to date with your work or any of that stuff. We're only talking about donors right now because we don't have 10 hours, but maybe we can. wanted to cover the basic buckets of giving. So you have monthly donors. You have monthly giving. It's just as it sounds. Usually these are smaller amounts. So if you want to be a monthly sustainer to an organization, there's an option. I'm sure you've seen it on PayPal or some other mechanism. Hey, I'd like to make my gift a monthly gift. Generally smaller, $10, $20 a month. You don't really miss it. But guess what? That's a really, really significant revenue stream for an organization, because your $10 or $20 just became $120 or $240 for that organization over the course of a year. So many organizations don't pay enough attention to this revenue stream. And I really want to encourage you to advocate for this on behalf of your organization, because it's a relatively small amount. It's palatable for a lot of folks. They don't even really see it, and it can really add up, because if you have several monthly donors, you're going to see a pretty significant revenue stream. Annual giving. So this is sort of a blanket term for everybody who isn't considered a major donor. And we're going to talk about what that means in a second, how to define that. So I'm an annual donor to my university, Salisbury. And every year I make a gift or a couple of gifts to them. And I get a piece of mail I get a piece of mail in the mail, and I'm sure you've gotten lots of those, right? Yeah. From college or from an organization that you really care about. So if you respond to one of those, or you make a gift online as a result of one of those, chances are we're going to consider you an annual donor. So annual giving is the majority of folks. Really, really important, because again, this shows the power of smaller gifts and their collective impact that they can have on an organization. Major giving. So we just talked about that, right? Mm-hmm. What depends on your organization. For some organizations, a major gift is $250. For some organizations, a major gift is $50,000. It just depends on where you are in the trajectory of your organization. I would say the vast majority of small nonprofits, a major gift is between $500 and $1,000, which is absolutely fantastic. Why do we make this distinction? Well, we make it, and as you're going to talk about soon, the way in which we communicate with our various donor groups is going to be a little bit different. And we want to make sure that our major donors are getting a little bit more conversation, maybe VIP treatment, as you call it, but we really want to keep them apprised of what's going on in a more personal way. And that's why we make that distinction. All gifts to an organization are important. It's just how we segment that conversation with them. Grants. I'm going to hold off on talking about this because our next month's chat is only grants. And that is a really, really significant revenue stream that comes with a whole host of opportunities and challenges. But a grant is a large influx of support, generally with some sort of reporting strings attached to it that an organization can secure. They can be local, they can be state grants, federal, private foundations, but that's an important stream to be mindful of. Corporate support. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but many corporations have philanthropic budgets, and could present an opportunity for your organization if the fit is right. Planned giving. So this is something a lot of people don't really like to talk about, but is really, really important. Planned giving is essentially your end of life wishes, and sometimes you call it estate planning, sometimes called planned giving. But a lot of organizations have this mechanism set up, and it's great because you can set up the opportunity for somebody to list your organization as a beneficiary in their will. And you don't really have to do a whole lot with that, because you don't see the benefit of that gift until that person has passed, which we hope is a really, really long time. But it's a very important stream. I've seen transformational amounts of money come into organizations, and honestly, they had no idea that this person had even listed them as a beneficiary. So something to be really mindful of. It's not something that you're going to see immediate gains from, but it's something that if you're thinking about the long-term health of your organization, absolutely look into having a planned giving plan for your organization. And I'm going to kick it over to you to talk about something really important and something that we see all the time, right?
All the time. Yeah. And especially in smaller rescues, nonprofits that are just starting out and they don't really have a fundraising strategy, all those options that you were just talking about, it becomes very need-based and emergency-based. For example, a rescue I work with will message me, we need to write a ask and we need to get this dog saved. It needs surgery today. And it's, oh, okay. You know, and so it's very reactionary, which can work, and especially in very tangible, empathetic stories that people can really connect with or understand. It's very tactile. It's something that they might have even experienced. Like, let's say they own a dog and they can picture that dog going through surgery, right? So that's when specific or urgent needs, putting that out to your social media following or even your email list, telling the story, the why, getting really granular. Usually under $1,000. I've seen them successful, because social media can be a little hit or miss, right? I'm not telling you to go on social media for every single one of your asks. I'm not telling you to bank on social media to fund your organization. It can be a really useful tool when used sparingly and really smart in your strategy as you grow. And of course, leverage it for those emergency things that people can really get with you and understand, especially if you're dealing with those things like dogs, right? That people will love and they will get behind day after day after day. No one wants to see an animal suffer, at least I hope not. And so they will get behind you and they will fund that emergency need. And that's where social media can be really emphasized. And it's okay to lean on it in the beginning. We get it. It's easy. It's accessible. We all already use it. So it's okay. But Lily and I just really both want to emphasize, please, please, please do not depend on it in the long term. Find a place for it in your strategy overall.
Yes, and you've brought up something that is a term that we use often in this field, which is that of donor fatigue.
Yes.
Donor fatigue is a real thing. If you see your favorite dog rescues or your favorite organization, every other post is urgent, 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 you start to wonder what's truly urgent and what's not. And so you sensitize to that. And that's going to be harmful in the long run to the organization. So I would argue that every need is an urgent need, right? It yesterday. And that's not a bad thing. That's just sort of the nature of the work. But you're absolutely right. Be judicious about how and when you use that. And the other element to consider is you're competing with a lot of other organizations that are on social media. I will talk to you about Giving Tuesday. Giving Tuesday, I think, is in its 10th year now. I think last year was the 10th anniversary of Giving Tuesday. And it's an online, it's a day of giving, and it has honestly become so saturated that I advise clients to no longer even worry about it. Because go onto your Facebook page or anything, check your inbox on Giving Tuesday, and there's dozens of organizations that are utilizing that. And it's not a bad thing, but don't count on it as a consistent revenue source. And so I would say also with the urgent needs stuff, it's great to demonstrate that there's a need right now and we need your help right now. Don't count on it consistently, because at some point it's just going to drop off a little bit.
I totally agree. And I'm glad that you brought up diversifying what you're posting, what you're communicating, how you're sharing your story. As far as communicating with donors and really thinking about your messaging, that is key. Donor fatigue is real. I just want to emphasize that. And you have so much more to share about your organization than just asking for money. It's a key marketing strategy too, even in the corporate world, to nurture your email list, to nurture your social following so that they know, in the sense of like a corporate entity, what their product can do, not just how they can buy. Because there are different consumers, just like there are different givers. Some want to know what they're buying, what they're contributing to, right? They want to know the stories, the successes you've had, where you want to take it in the future. Please always talk about the future. That's one of the things I always stress with my clients, because so many nonprofits are focused on their wins or the pain, and so few continue past that and say, this is where we want to be in 20 years. This is what we want the world to look like in 50 years because of the work that we do. Paint that picture for your donors, your supporters, your social media following, your email list. Like really, really bring them along, share your values, share your why, remind them about your work and why it's important instead of just asking. And if you're afraid that you're going to miss out on the opportunity to get a donor on a certain email or a certain post, there are different ways to ask. It doesn't always need to be super blatant or for an urgent need, a specific campaign. It could just say, if you want to support our work, go to our website, right? It could be very quiet, very simple and easy. It doesn't have to be overt. So there are ways to continue to show them how to take action, show them how to support you in different types of posts as you're nurturing them. And then that way the donor fatigue is far less.
Yes, 100%. And here's the other great thing about, and this is something that we call in fundraising stewardship. So thanking people, making sure that you're stewarding that relationship, you're being a good steward of that. People know how to give. So if you have a communication that is just to thank somebody, which I highly encourage, I just did this with a client, and we just sent a letter to anybody who had made a gift in multiple years. So if you gave in 2022 and 2023 or 2020 and 2021, whatever that may be, you got a letter from the executive director, and it just said, thank you. Thanks for being one of our strongest supporters. There's no ask in there. But guess what? That donor, they may make a gift out of that because they may say, wow, that was so lovely. They know how to go to your website and make a gift. So you don't have to be so direct about it all the time. And frankly, if the only time your donors or the only time your constituents are hearing from you is at the end of the year or the end of your fiscal year when you really need something or when you're asking them for a gift, then you're missing a huge opportunity to meaningfully engage with your donors and keep them apprised of all of the great work that you're doing.
Absolutely. And one example comes to mind. I think it's a cultural thing, at least in the US, that there is a certain animal protection organization's commercial with a certain song that many people mute or change the channel because they just can't handle it, right? And it's on all the time, and they're asking for support all the time, and it just gets exhausting. It's emotionally exhausting to watch that commercial for a lot of people. So I encourage you to keep that in mind when you're writing your appeals. And when was the last time we actually thanked them for supporting us? When was the last time we shared a story, just shared, and didn't ask for something? Really set yourself apart and put yourself in the shoes of the person you're speaking to. Think about a product that you purchased or a donation that you made and why you did it. What did that organization or business do to earn your business or support, right? And the more you think about that nurturing, that empathetic connection, the more you'll see how you can also implement certain strategies.
And let me give you a bonus piece of information, because you brought up that organization that shall not be named with the that I every time and have to walk away and hug my dog about. They bank on a model that focuses on bringing brand new donors in because their attrition rate is so high. So the attrition is donors who gave once and never gave again, the drop off. Why? Because of exactly what you said. So they are scaling their program on such a huge level that they get 50,000 new people giving every year, but 20,000 drop off. Well, they don't really care about nurturing that relationship long term because they're just filling that pipeline, and they have all of the resources to be pushing all of that media out and creating that sort of household name. Their model is focused on attrition because they're focused on large scale. So they don't really care as much about that one-on-one relationship and thanking you and telling you why your work matters and how you can support it in the future. They really are more of a volume business. So,
and I'm so happy you're bringing up relationship management. That is critical in nonprofits. We talked about thank yous. We talked about nurturing and sharing other things than just asking for money. What else would you recommend that a nonprofit put into their management, relationship management strategy?
Talk to people, call people, you know. Um, depending on what your mechanism for receiving gifts is maybe you get a check, maybe you get a PayPal, maybe you receive an email confirmation or something like that. Pick up the phone, send somebody an email and just say, hey, I just wanted to thank you. I just saw your gift come in. So grateful for your support. So grateful for your continued support. You'll get a formal tax letter later, but I just wanted to reach out and say thanks. You know, you would make because think about what you would want as a donor, right? This is always that how do I want to be treated? If I got a thank you, text, call, email, depending on your relationship with that person, within 24 hours of making a gift, I would feel so good about the work that that organization was doing because they appreciate me.
Yeah.
And that's how I want to make people feel. And that's how I want to support how my clients are making their donors feel. So you can never say thank you too much. That would be my largest piece of advice.
I love it.
Reach out when you have nothing to ask for. That would be the other piece. Randomly reach out, you know, hey, I was thinking, hey, we just had a great intake day for our rescue. Hey, we were just able to put 6 or 8 or 10 dogs in, you know, on a transport van. And I just wanted to thank you because without your support, that wouldn't be possible. You would be absolutely flabbergasted at the impact that that has if you are building those relationships with your donors. And it's not that hard. It's just about creating that mindset to be able to do it on a regular basis and with consistency.
Amazing. Oh, such good advice. Thank you so much, Lily. You shared so many juicy nuggets. I hope people go back through and replay this, take notes, ask us questions as you start implementing things. There's so much good in this Instagram Live. It will be posted later. We will be sharing it and online to answer questions, so feel free to drop them in the comments. And a friendly reminder, as Lily mentioned, she will be going deep into grants next time, and that will be the second Tuesday in June, which is the 13th. Same time, same place.
Well,
any closing remarks?
We will be going deep into grants on
June. I mean,
if there's ever a time when writing compelling copy integrates with fundraising, grants is the space.
Fair enough.
And there are so many opportunities out there, but I got to tell you, you need to have your stuff airtight to be able to distinguish your organization. And this is where copy, impact, and articulating that in an application becomes absolutely key. So you might be talking more than I'll be talking, which
we'll see. And we have to get you more followers so you can be that influencer. I mean, we're getting close. We're getting close.
74. I want one more influencer, one more follower. I'll be at 75. I think 100. We measured success at 100. So I'm just trying to get up to your level, honestly. If I can get to 75, I'll feel really great about it. But 100 will be next level.
We'll get you there. We'll get you there.
Always. Thanks for all of your knowledge. We will see you on Tuesday, June 13th, to have a crash course in grants you will not want to miss.
All right. See you next time. Bye, everyone.